So I just found out that the second edition of this book has come out just a few months ago, I think in 2023. I'm using the first edition from 2014, so some of the figures and text we have read shows that it's from a few years ago. I'm sure not a whole lot has changed in the core ideas of sustainability principles, but I will try to get the new book and see what are the key advances made in the book in terms of the presentation compared to the first edition, and have it reported somewhere when I finish the course. So this is the last part of the last chapter of the second part of the book. So we are looking at world as human environment systems here, and it's a good discussion and there is a lot of text again, but it's very important in terms of constructing a model for the human environment systems, which have a hard part, a soft part, and then there are various complexities that we have to think about in terms of representing them as needed in different contexts. So it's all important discussion because we go into the next part of the book, which is about changing the world. Here we are in this part 2, which is called approaching the world. So this is the most important part about approaching the world. The previous 2 chapters of the second part of this book both emphasize that risk, resilience and sustainability are complex issues. This is, however, not the only area in which complexity constitutes a daunting challenge for scientific inquiry and practical action, of course. Living organisms, the brain, society, climate and ecosystems are just a few other examples with something in common. We can also go all the way out and say the origin of the universe is a big question, but we are now zooming into Earth. Living organisms are made up of complex interactions of myriads of cells. The brain is a vast network of neurons transmitting signals. Society is made up of interconnected individuals and organizations, etc. So this is what we are most interested in. We are of course interested in the brain in this context of society being made up of individuals and organizations, because how individuals behave and interact with organizations and with other individuals depends very much on the brain in terms of the intrinsic biases that we talked about in the last chapter. In short, they can all be approached as wholes made up by complex sets of interrelated parts. So this is what we'll define as a system in a minute. In attempts to grasp and learn from this complexity, some scholars find it helpful to look at the entity under study as a system. So this idea is quite old. I won't read the references. So as von Bertalanffy did regarding the living organism, Ashby in regards to the brain, and Buckley when studying society. These approaches, so-called systems approaches, span various disciplines, all having a particular set of ideas, systems ideas, in trying to understand the world's complexity. I think we all have an intuitive sense of what a system is, so let's finish this part and then we'll come back to that in the next podcast. I argue in chapter 5 that sustainable development requires us to analyze the current situation, define our preferred expected scenario based on our values and valuables, and sustainable development hopefully is the preferred expected scenario. Analyze potential deviations from our preferred expected scenarios. So we talked about detours because of the risk scenarios, and of course design and implement sets of activities that maintain our preferred expected development trajectory. So resilience was about following the risk scenario, deviate from the main path, come back in the human development and environmental footprint phase space. In order to be able to do that in our complex world, we need to construct models of it, models that represent the parts of the world we are interested in, be it an organization, a community, a municipality, etc. So we'll see some of the details. So we will get to systems right here. Again, I'm not reading all the text, but a lot of the text in this chapter because it's important. Deviations away from the preferred expected future scenario of an organization, community, or society are not results of linear chains of events like dominoes falling on each other. They are nonlinear phenomena that emerge within such complex systems themselves. Systems comprise human beings, the tools they use, the buildings they are in, the air they breathe, the grass they walk on, etc. In other words, risk emerges in the intersection between social and the environmental. Wren takes this relationship further when stating that risk is largely a byproduct of how human beings transform the natural environment into a cultural environment for the purpose of serving human needs and wants, as we'll see a prop in the next slide. This transformation has brought about immense changes in the world, especially over the last 300 years, so just before the Industrial Revolution, 1819, and continues to do so at an ever-increasing pace. So this was critical. So here is the prop: transformation of our natural environment to our cultural environment. Of course, when we say natural, we mean mountains, forests, vegetation, rolling hills, clouds, and we are modifying them by our activities like this construction on the slopes and deforesting and digging out material to build these things and so on and so forth. So let's define systems here itself, because I think I have what am I doing? Am I going in the wrong direction? Yeah, I have screwed this up somehow. So okay, doesn't matter. Did I? So I need to remove this slide and this empty slide and make sure that I have not misplaced anything. Okay, what did sorry to be doing this live. I try to arrange the slides and make sure I have it correct, but sometimes you do it at the wrong time of the day and you're tired and then you screw things up. No harm done, right? Okay, so this is what we read. We are changing things and we are creating new risks which are coming at us at an ever increasing pace. So this is an example of a transformation, but you can see much more dramatic transformations which we already did in terms of urbanization and so on. So let's think about systems. The type of systems at times refer to as NTS, natural, technical, social systems, or more commonly as socio-ecological systems. But the important thing is that they include both human and environmental when analyzing or addressing issues of risk, resilience, and sustainability. So obviously you can see the natural, the technical, and people living there in terms of social, and then there are political as well, in terms of how the little town may be governed and so on and so forth. Okay, so that's natural, technical, social. To highlight this in terms of the analyzing and addressing of issues in risk, resilience, and sustainability, I refer to such systems as human environment systems throughout the book. We have already done this extensively, but we are defining it a bit more formally here because we are going to build a model of it. I do so especially to emphasize the intentional capacity of human beings, which I show in the first part of this book, where we looked at the state of our world, the past defining our present, and so on, to have been increasingly central. So the book has discussed in part 1 that the intentional capacity of human beings is increasingly central for the development of our world over time. And I keep saying, and somebody else has said it in similar words, is that we are basically colonizing the future and the resources of future generations being exploited now, not necessarily in a sustainable way, but this is the battle of sustainably exploiting the resources so that we don't jeopardize the ability of the future generations to exploit the same resources, right? Human agency is, in other words, central when explaining, understanding, or improving human environment systems. It's important to note that this approach to our complex and dynamic world only attributes agency in any significant sense to individuals, groups, organizations, or other entities comprising human beings. This approach to human environment systems is thus markedly different from actor network theory, which also has been applied to address sustainability challenges by these references here, and views agency as an aspect of networks of human and non-human actants per se. So it's not just in individuals and organizations, but also non-human actants. Of course, cyclones, sea level rise, rainfall, a lot of these non-human actants are part of our agency, because our agency is responsive, reactive, and sometimes proactive. In preparing for agriculture, before the rainy season, we are proactively changing the land, cleaning the land, preparing for sowing, and so on and so forth. It is in this nexus of social and environmental that sustainability science has arisen to address the core challenges of humankind. This is done by increasing our understanding of the complex and dynamic character of our world, and by supporting the capacity of society to guide its development through avoiding or minimizing deviations from its preferred and sustainable future. One way of managing this complexity and dynamic character is to approach our world as a complex human environment system, and to view both the risks of deviations away from the preferred expected scenario as well as actual disturbances, disruptions, and disasters as rooted in the same complex human environment system that supplies human beings with opportunities. So I've already shown the piping diagram of the Earth system, which also believes that it's a complex human environment system where now we are in fact an external forcing in terms of changing the radiative balance, energy balance. But there are others like Pam Matson and so on. I think I called her Pam Stevens before. Pam Stevens was somebody else. Pam Matson from Stanford has also a book on sustainability and based on their field work with her colleagues. But there are others who have also seen this human environment system. What I find slightly different here, maybe better in my mind, is to always think of the human environment system as the phase space of human development and environmental footprint to define our trajectory to sustainable pathways. Okay, so that's about human environment system that supplies human beings with opportunities, and opportunities to be sustainable or not. This type of systems is at times referred to as NTS, so I misplaced that slide then. NTS systems, so natural, technical, social systems, or more commonly as socio-ecological systems, but the important thing is that they include both the human and the environment when analyzing or addressing issues of risk, resilience, and sustainability. To highlight this, I refer to such systems as human environment systems throughout this book, so I do so especially to emphasize the intentional capacity of human beings, which I show in the first part of this book to have been increasingly central to the development of our world over time. So I read it again, but that doesn't matter. I think I have repeated this again here. Yeah, so obviously I was too tired while I was doing this, so let's stop here. This is long enough anyways, and the points were made clearly enough. So I will reorganize the slides and we'll continue with this idea of systems, approaches, and concepts. So you cannot really deal with anything about the climate or the Earth system or even components of the climate system like the ocean, the atmosphere, land, glaciers, and so on, especially sustainability, which includes human beings as well, we cannot deal with these without taking the systems approach. So we'll define a few things to say exactly what we mean by that, and these are critical concepts. So we'll go through some details, which means reading some text, some more text. Okay.